Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the year again. Once again, fate brings together those who heed the call of the Red Ribbon Reviewers, the online reviewer program where we promote HIV and AIDS awareness through our videos. Some of us who appear on camera wear a red ribbon. Others of us who appear behind camera put a red ribbon throughout our videos that you see. And this year, we are promoting Project Hope. For more than 60 years, Project Hope has transformed the health and well-being of people and communities around the world. They work on the front lines of the world's health challenges, partnering hand-in-hand with communities, healthcare workers, and the public health system to ensure sustainable change. In the case of HIV awareness, when people wanted different futures for their family, Hope actually has engaged entire communities to help break down barriers and change the narrative. And furthermore, they also tend to help out as well during even war crises as well, such as the Russian-Ukraine invasion and most recently, the 2023 Israel-Hamas war. To find out more and to maybe donate, please check out the link in the description box below. Thank you. Now on with the video. Well, this is it, ladies and gentlemen. We've reached the time of the year again, and it's kind of a big one for me here, because this is pretty much the last game in a series that I've pretty much reviewed every single entry for, going as far back as almost 2016, when the second ever game I reviewed around the winter time here for Red Ribbon Reviewers was none other than SSX Tricky. And to show you just how much this franchise actually means to me, this is pretty much almost every copy of SSX games I own practically. The only thing you don't see in the pile is a greatest hits copy of 3 that was actually my childhood, but this right here is pretty much accurate to the brim. I still have my GameCube childhood copy of Tricky and Xbox childhood copy of 3. Yeah, because it was a gift. And then on tour as well, childhood copy of Blur, not so much because I traded in my original, but yeah. This is to show you how much I actually really love the series. And technically I used to have a greatest hits Tricky, but I don't anymore because I got the black label. But finally, we're now at the last one in the franchise. SSX 2012. Enjoy the review, ladies and gentlemen.
Embrace the deception, learn how to bend your worst inhibitions, then psych you out in the end.
Every beginning has an end, and after years of reviewing winter games via Red Ribbon Reviewers and tackling every console SSX game, none of the games ever got ported to PC sadly, we finally reached the last one in the SSX series. The only game in the franchise I've never played up until now, SSX 2012, or just SSX, but 2012 is added to distinguish it from the original game, and I will be referring to it as such for the rest of this video. This game has several other distinguishing things about it. It was the only game in the franchise for 7th gen consoles, PS3 and 360, and it also is the only game in the franchise to not be published under the EA Sports Big label, as the label itself was dissolved in 2007. Instead, it was under EA Sports. The game also had a bit of a different tone at first. The game was first announced at the Spike Video Game Awards 2010 under the name SSX Deadly Descents. I remember actually reading about this in a magazine way back when it was first announced. This was to be a darker approach with more dangerous routes compared to the previous games. Not to mention it also alluded to maybe other pastimes besides alpine sports. As in the original trailer, the character popped out sings pretty much pops out a flying squirrel wingsuit. Due to the mixed reception of the original trailer from fans, the game was slightly reworked and the Deadly Descent subtitle was dropped, even though they still played a major part in the game. At a presentation sometime in 2011 at an EA Sports event in San Francisco, creative director Todd Batty assured people that the game would still keep what fans loved about the series while still introducing some new ideas. Fans would still be able to pull off insane tricks, the game would still have the colorful aesthetic it had in past entries, and the game would still have that open world feeling seen in SSX 3. There would also be a revamped control scheme inspired by the likes of Skate, and the game would use real-world locations instead of fictional ones seen in past games, many of which were created from data via NASA. Essentially, the presentation was old dog, new tricks. Interest kept building for the game, and SSX 2012 was eventually released on February 28, 2012 for North America, March 2nd, 2012 for Australia, and one day later for Europe for the PS3 and Xbox 360. I'll be referring to it as, well, 2012 SSX, or something to that effect for the rest of the video to, well, differentiate it from the OG game. So how does this game stand against the others? Are we not quite out of the bad run that Blur left in everyone's mouth? Or does this game serve as a return to standards set by Tricky, 3, and On Tour? Let's find out. The story of this game is, yeah, I said story. There is a legitimate one that is not going to win any awards, but hey, it's going to get the job done. That many of the SSX regulars form a team and tend to conquer the 9 deadly descents around the world. And they're going to raise funds by live streaming their adventures to the world. This is when live streaming was just beginning to take off. However, former SSX member, the one boy wonder Griff Simmons, has gotten a bit of an ego about this and is looking to conquer the descents himself. So it's a race to the finish to see who will win it all first. The team is primarily led by Zoe Payne. There's also Mac Frazier and the first of several newcomers, Tane Muema, who I probably butchered his name just now, but it doesn't matter here because Atomica knows how to pronounce it, so yeah. And he is a Fijian surfer who became disillusioned with surfing in parts. Each actually has their own sport, Zoe in biking, Mac in actual snowboarding, and Tane in surfing. See, in this realm, SSX stands for snowboarding, surfing, and motocross. Yet in the original games, it was Super Snowboard Cross. Not to mention, it pretty much came from the basis of the real-life border cross snowboarding event, but I digress. Aside from Zoe, Mac, and Griff, other returning SSX vets include Elise Riggs, Kaori Nishidaki, Moby Jones, and Simon Stark. Aside from Tane, new characters include Alex Moreu, a French skier who eventually became a snowboarder, the only European female in the series, and the only other French in the series besides JP, and Ty Thorson, a Norwegian test rider whose skills lead to Zoe Payne recruiting him. There are 2 DLC characters who were originally pre-order bonuses. Real-life snowboarder Travis Rice, the only real pro to appear in any of these games, and returning SSX veteran Eddie Wachowski in an actually playable form that isn't a cheat code. SSX 2012 takes the classic formula and puts a new spin on it. You'll still be doing many of the familiar race and freestyle events seen in the previous games. They pretty much function the same as the previous games. Race to the bottom to at least place or get first / get the highest trick score. But what leads to it is different. You see, there are 9 main sections of the game in total, and each one is based off a real-world mountain. You will eventually do events until you are able to take on a deadly descent. When that happens, you'll do what the game calls Survive It. You will take the designated rider from the top to the bottom with an object to make things more difficult. Trees, gravity, ice, etc. Each rider you'll control for a specific part, since some can handle other hazards better. You'll have to be careful not to fail so much or your armor will get hit if you have it equipped. When that runs out, watch your health, or else you'll fail and have to do the event over again. Oh yeah, the armor is just one of the many new things this game adds. Since you are taking on more tougher challenges, you can have upgrades. As you complete the events, you'll earn credits. You'll spend credits on better boards, better suits, armors, wingsuits, pickaxes, and flashlights, amongst various other gadget upgrades. These upgrades help increase your survivability rate, and they help bring something different to the game. In general, the courses feel very different from the ones seen in Tricky and 3. Think On Tour, but without all the pomp and circumstance and more backwoods free riding ordeal. Speaking of free ride, you actually have an Explore mode where you can ride on any unlocked mountain and do challenges and global events. You can even take online challenges for times and scores, but some stuff does require an online pass. Yeah, this is when the industry was pushing that crap, and thank God it died a million deaths. These can also be done for more credits, and you can even play at geotags for other players to try and reach for extra credits. So it's looking up so far, and despite the differences, the racing is actually very easy to pick up on. The essential parts that make SSX what it is still remain in SSX 2012. You pretty much go from the start point to the end point, doing whatever goal the game asks you to do. You move down the track and you perform tricks. As you perform tricks, you'll earn boost. Once you build up enough boost, you'll enter Tricky mode. This returns from SSX Tricky and functions just about the same. Once you enter Tricky mode, you can perform Uber tricks. Perform enough of them and you go into Super Tricky mode. You usually just perform the amount to spell out the word tricky, much like in, well, SSX Tricky. And then when you enter Super Tricky mode, just keep performing tricks and you'll have a ton of boost. You can also build up combo bonuses with more tricks, which brings in a multiplier for more points, but don't crash or you'll lose it. If you make a mistake, you can actually rewind time, though you'll lose trick points, time, which continues normally for the opponent, and you only have a limited amount of rewind time to be used, so don't use it too often. You might at first though, because the overall feel of the game does feel different from the past ones. Things aren't as tight as they used to be, and it's not as easy to slow down. You'll turn around when you normally try to slow down, and it seems like the SSX team took some pages from the AMP team when designing the overall feel of the gameplay. This is actually a perfect segue into another part of the game that has been refined depending on what you select: the controls. There are actually two different control schemes. The first set, known as Standard, has you using either the right analog stick or press the face buttons on the controller when in the air. They essentially both do the same thing, and it comes down to, do you want skate or Tony Hawk Pro Skater style controls? For me, neither. If I wanted to play that, I would play those respective games. Fortunately for me and many other SSX veterans, there is an option for classic controls. This essentially gives you the get-up seen in the previous games, and it works just about as well as the original games. Though with the new features such as rewind and activating the wingsuit when equipped do take some getting used to. On top of that, you can no longer natively grind on objects like trees and things like that. You have to push the right button to do so when near said objects. It's not necessary, especially since you now pretty much stick to rails when grinding them for the most part. On top of that, you can't spin in the air with the analog stick. You have to use the D-pad only. I think this is always how it was before, but the fact that I'm only just noticing this now, yeah. Maybe it's just because of the 360 D-pad, which is the version I'm playing on, kinda sucks, and I wish it was better. You can probably get used to it after a while. PS3 players, you'll be fine. Same for Xbox One and onwards, since it's on the backwards compatibility list for that series of consoles. Otherwise, the controls are fine, but I really do suggest the original controls, since if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's how it goes. If this is your first SSX game, you could probably get away with Standard, but everyone else, stick with Classic. The graphics for this game are actually pretty good. Seriously, it's almost scary how many 7th gen titles still hold up graphically, and they aren't the big powerhouses that some modern games are, but they all have very pleasing art styles, and this game is no different. Like I said earlier, NASA data was used to help create the mountains in the game, and they all look pretty good. There are plenty of details on environment, with lots of objects to boot. The mountains are distinctly shaped, and each of them have their own unique feeling to them. Each mountain does feel different, and there is variety in it all. Furthermore, the lighting looks pretty good. You've got a good mix there between daytime, sunset, nighttime. Not one thing is overpowering at all, and it really makes the game look better. Character models also look very good, and even though the designs are different from past games, they do not stand out of place like in Blur. Yeah, the models have more layers, but they are tackling tougher mountains with harsher conditions, so that's to be expected. The character models feel like natural evolutions, and the new characters fit in well with their designs and personalities. These are also further refined by the comic book style panels seen in between completing events. Not to mention trick animations still look pretty good, and the insane tricks really look insane, though the over-the-top nature is a bit toned back from the last games. Not as much in your face. See Simon's less craziness, yeah. Still, everything looks well, and the game is very nice to look at. Everything is also enhanced when played on an Xbox One and onwards. The sound design for the game is also pretty good. Sound effects for everything that you would normally expect from a game of this nature, well, sounds as it should. Rail grind sounds, jumping and landing, near misses, boost sounds, pretty much everything that made the sound design great in the previous games is back. One interesting thing to note is that you can configure the game for your home theater if you have your system hooked up to it. Pretty cool. The music itself is also a good point. We've gone back to the more electronic feeling of everything seen in the original SSX and Tricky. What we've got here is a mix of drum and bass, electronica, electronic rock, rap, and even some dubstep, cause it sure as hell was at the time a thing, amongst maybe indie rock and some other smaller genres. At least when the game came out, or smaller picks, yeah. It's mostly electronic-oriented soundtrack with a few sprinkles of other things here and there. Artists feature include Camo and Crooked, DJ Shadow, Flux Pavilion, Skrillex, and many more. Oh, and the Pretty Lights remix of Run DMC's It's Tricky is here. The Spain versions actually have an exclusive song in Las Ketchup's Cucha Las Payas, but that's it there for some reason. Getting the classic track and Riders DLC actually brings back a few songs from the original two games. John Morgan's Dark Path, Gin and Sin, and Top Bomb. Good mix with a few odd choices depending on whatever else you get. This game also actually reworks the technology used to adjust the songs on the fly when writing. In the previous games, when you were in the air, the music would fade out and landing would fade it back in. The original games would have had specific remix parts play depending on where you were, but here, the harmony technology dynamically remixes any song in the game, including custom soundtracks. Oh, did I mention that was an option as well? So if you have any songs from past SSX games you want to hear, basically, you can just, well, put them on your Xbox 360 into a playlist, and yeah. So if you hear any, that's exactly what I did, basically. Custom soundtrack options are always a plus in my book. I talk about the voice acting, but again, there isn't much to talk about. While there's more voice acting here than in Blur, and it's actually pretty good for the most part, most of the voice actors aren't credited. The only ones that are Adrian Petrou as Tame, Dave Petit as Simon, being the, well, third voice actor for him after Jim Rose in Tricky and Alistair Abel in 3 and On Tour, Josiah Shantz as Ty, and Mark Hildreth as DJ Atomica because, god dang it, who else is gonna play him? They do a fine job, but I wish the other actors were credited. I'm willing to bet one of the uncredited voice actors probably had a voiceover role in that damn horse show, but I can't actually prove that, basically, since, yeah, only those 4 I mentioned are credited. And Travis Rice technically voices himself, but I think that goes without saying. Maybe one day I can prove it, but yeah. And with all the credits you can earn, as well as the gear and the online challenges, geotags, and free ride challenges, there's quite a bit of replayability here. This is something we've seen in past games, and it's always a welcome addition, since veterans will probably adapt to the new mechanics very quickly and get through the story with not much time, at least by the past game standards. SSX 2012 helped breathe new life into the franchise after a dormancy period of 5 years. The game looks good, sounds good, plays well, has a good amount of content, puts a fresh spin on the SSX formula while keeping what made the series great, and like every other game in the series except Blur, it's fun. However, the writing does feel a bit looser than the previous games. The newer control schemes seem more gimmicky than exciting. The 360 D-pad isn't the best for this sort of game. The in-game tutorial won't switch over to the classic control explanation even when you switch it over in the options menu. Some new elements don't blend best with the classic controls. The music might not fit everyone's taste. Custom soundtracks mitigate this. And the actual single player itself kinda doesn't have as much depth, I guess, as the past ones. At least until the later stages. Despite this, this is still a very good game that righted the wrongs of Blur and actually ended the series on a high note. Maybe not a full bang, but enough of a bang. If you're a veteran of the franchise but you've missed out on it the first time, give it a go now. You'll probably enjoy it. It's an alright starting point for newcomers as well, but let me assure you, going backwards here somehow leads to going up? Whatever, don't think too hard about that last bit, just play the game. It's affordable and fun. I give SSX 2012 a 4 out of 5. And with that, we close out the season at last once again. You know, it's been kind of an interesting ordeal to just go through all these games anyways as well, because it's always been a series that has meant the world to me, and now I'm kind of sad that we've pretty much reached the last game in the franchise. But don't fret just yet. There are still plenty of other snowboarding games I can cover around this time. I mean, the Amped games, 1080 Avalanche, and then even if you start expanding off as well from other stuff like that into other winter sports, we could maybe even cover the original Sled Storm on the PlayStation. And then once that list is exhausted, we then have to follow the formula that makes Die Hard movie somehow a Christmas movie, but not at the same time in a way. A Christmas movie for people who don't want traditional Christmas movies. We can find a Christmas game of that same nature, and voila. I think I know one in Lifeline. Anyways, that's really it there as well. So with that, I hope you all have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Festivus, happy whatever the hell you celebrate, and happy hearts warming to my favorite film shit. Yes, I know this game probably might not have had barely any actors from that damn horse show, but you know what? Yet it wouldn't feel right for me just not ending it like that. Yeah, happy hearts warming, my favorite film ship, and we'll see you all in 2024. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, click the big red button below to subscribe. Check out the other links in the description for more cool stuff, and check out the playlist on screen for more content. See you in the next video.